Happy Wednesday, everybody. Andy and Steve from WagerTalk.com. We are here for the Road to Millions on September 13th. We have a great show for everybody with some really good, actionable information. We're going to go over our fade of the day. We've got a really nice sleeper of the day. We got a stat today that sets up really, really well for the NFL. We're going to update the Survivor Pool, as everyone's been asking. And we have a viewer question that you're going to want to listen to because first off, I really appreciate whoever sent this in. It was a very open and honest question, and I think we're gonna take away a lot from it because he brings up a lot of points that I would like to go over. So it's a really, really important question and topic. So thank you for writing this in, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So let's just get right into it here, guys. Fade of the day, sleeper, viewer questions, stat of the day, survivor update. So let's go to the fade of the day here, Steve. Let Russ, I don't know, cook a little bit. So, I don't know. I didn't think he played that bad. I thought he started off great in the first half and then just fizzled out. I'm not sure. Without Jerry Jeudy there, I don't know what his expectations are, but you're looking at fading him again, so let's talk it out. Russell Wilson, what do we know about him?
Well, he did cook a little bit last week. I mean, he only threw for 177 yards though, but he was accurate. He was 27 for 34. He had a couple of touchdown passes. He didn't throw an interception, so there were some bright spots. Unfortunately for him, he lost the game. You talked about Jerry Jeudy not being healthy and missing last week. He still has a hamstring injury. They had to call up a couple of practice squad guys to fill in last week with Philip Dorsett and Jordan Humphreys, and facing a tough defense this week against the Commanders. They held Joshua Dobbs to 132 last week. I mean, obviously Wilson's an upgrade over Dobbs, but the Commanders' defense has been solid. Last year they were, they ranked 11th in passing yards allowed, and we have a really low total in this game. So it looks just like another one of these tight, like the games that both these teams were involved in week one. Broncos Commanders to me feels like a 17-14, 21-20 type of game, maybe even lower than that. But a really tight game where Wilson won't have a ton of passing yards. This number seems a bit high, and based on the 177, I'm going under here.
Yeah, we got to monitor Jerry Jeudy. I mean, they add Jeudy to the lineup. I think it changes the complexion completely. The defense now has to really, really change what they're doing. So I used Russell Wilson in a fantasy league as a streaming option the first week. He had the Raiders. He was okay. He was fine. If you waited on quarterback, it wasn't terrible, but I'm not going to use him this week against the Commanders. I was looking at Brock Purdy or Jordan Love. I actually pick up Jordan Love and use him for the rest of the year. Guy looked pretty good. Wasn't
Yeah, he
bad.
didn't look bad, and he's going to get Watson back eventually, and he'll be even better probably.
Yeah, so we're looking to fade Russell Wilson. This line is not out yet. This is a projected line. We did really good kind of projecting these lines last year, and I think that's one thing that we have worked really hard on is like Steve, you and I have been talking about what are we going to bet in NFL since like May. And we've been projecting lines, and I think we're in a really good groove. So when we're putting out these numbers on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, you're probably not going to find them on the books. We're trying to get a really good ballpark. We're trying to get as accurate as possible. So the second the lines come out, we know what we're going to do. So this is a projected line. If the line is anything near 221, we'll be looking at taking the under for those reasons. So. What plays do we have up here? Well, we still have our 5% UFC play. We are now on an 8-1 MMA run after cashing last night in the Contender Series. Thank you to everybody that joined in on that one. Kind of a no sweat. We had a heavyweight to knock out another heavyweight, and first round KO. Guy went to sleep, so it was really, really nice. And don't forget about those golf profits. We have the Fortnite Championship. There's a play that is up that I just absolutely love. And we'll have a week off in golf. And then it is Ryder Cup, baby. So golf is in full swing, guys. You know that's a sport I'm very passionate about. Never had a losing season in golf since joining WagerTalk. So make sure you grab that golf play. That's up at WagerTalk.com. Let's do the sleeper play of the day. And, of course, we're going to talk football, but not the NFL in this one. Sleeper of the day, the Edmonton Elks. So I don't think the books have caught up to this Edmonton Elks team. They're +3 against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the whole premise of this Elks turnaround has been Trey Ford. They finally gave the. I don't know why they didn't let him be quarterback sooner, but I don't know what they were waiting for. But he just turned this team around. New quarterback. They started off 0-7. Now they're 3-1 since they make the quarterback change. Just one quarterback. And the Rough Riders, man, are they off a brutal loss. So they beat the Blue Bombers 32-30 in a crazy game 2 weeks ago, except they have to play the Blue Bombers next week, the week after, which was last week. They lost 51-6. Like,
Oof.
they got their heads kicked in. That is one of those losses where, like, sometimes you lose and a team comes out, it's like, let's rebound, guys. I think that was a humbling loss. Like, they got to win against the team that's going to be fighting for the Grey Cup, and then they just got put in their place that, no, you don't belong here. So, and here's the other thing. They only beat the Elks by 1 earlier this year before they had Trey Ford. So when the Elks were on their 0-7 run, and the final score is 12-11. If ever there was a CFL score, that's it. It's 12-11. You'll never see that
It's perfect.
in NFL. Yeah. So the Elks just keep getting points. I don't think a money line bet is bad. I think the +3 is fantastic. I think the Elks are underrated. And Steve, we were fading the Elks hard at the beginning
Of the year.
Absolutely. And then they make this change. And you got to adjust your rankings and adjust the numbers. But the Edmonton Elks, believe it or not, are a bet on team as opposed to a bet against. So that is going to be your sleeper of the day. Let's do the stat of the day. Steve, this one was yours. And we're talking Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk it out. They got the Bengals +3.5. What's going on here?
Yeah, the Bengals didn't look very good this past week. Looks like a great spot to play the Ravens. I mean, obviously they lost Dobbins, but I don't feel like, I mean, Hill and Edwards are still there. Hill looked really good. I feel like he's gonna step up nicely. And the Ravens, they played the Bengals last year in the postseason as well as one of the final weeks of the regular season, and they kept it tight in both games, 27-16, 24-17. And that's despite not having Lamar, OBJ, Flowers, all the weapons that the Ravens have now. This line at 3.5 right now, the Ravens are +3.5. It's in Cincinnati, but the Cincinnati didn't do anything well last week. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at the Ravens +3.5 here.
I mean, 18-3-1. What a great spot for an underdog. And Burrow certainly didn't look healthy. He looked rusty. I'm not sure if he shakes off the rust in 1 week. It kind of feels like it's not going to be till week 5 or something until Burrow is on the same page with everybody. Maybe it happens, but he clearly was not 100%. We talked a lot about how we are kicking ourselves. We didn't take Burrow under 9.5 rushing yards.
That was a great one.
Yeah, and so I think this stat is really applicable. The Ravens have been a really, really good bet on when they're underdogs, and now they're getting over a field goal against a team that looked terrible last week, whose quarterback's not healthy. So stat of the day, Ravens 18-3-1 in the last 22 games as the underdog. So take advantage of that. Let's talk about the Survivor Pool. 88 people started. We only lost 21. That might have been 81 if the Commanders had lost. Might have been 81 people eliminated. so everyone used their Commanders this week. So congratulations to everybody that advanced. So if you advanced, just put your week 2 selection in the comment section. I'd recommend doing it sooner rather than later so you don't forget. And I put the spreadsheet in the pinned comment. Like, you are not going to be able to put your team in the spreadsheet. Put it in the comments. I will take care of it. I'm not giving 60 people permission to put their own picks in that's got disaster written all over it. So just put it in the week 2. Your week 2 selection in the comments section today, tomorrow, whatever. But make sure you don't forget. It would be a bummer to advance in week 1 and then lose in week 2 because you didn't forgot to put a pick in. So congratulations to everybody that advanced, and hopefully we can get a bunch more people through. I'd love for this thing to go far into the season here. So we're gonna get yes, Steve.
Good news is I didn't use the Commanders, and so I got week.
Still
I got
our Commanders.
I got week. I got week 15 against the Rams circled right now.
So do you. You got it planned out all the way to week 15. I love it. So
got this in the bag.
All right, we're going to go over the viewer question real quick, guys. If you haven't gotten the 5% UFC play, go get that thing. Golf play is up, and tomorrow we will start our big weekend plays. I know we were going to have a Thursday night football play, just trying to narrow it down, and then we'll get you ready. We do have a Formula One race, and we've got a lot of really good parlay pieces, so expect some cross-sport parlays for sure. This is a great weekend for cross-sport parlays. All right, let's get to the viewer question, and there's a lot to unpack here. So here we go. Andy, I had a pretty rough weekend when it comes to NFL, usually what I consider my best sport. I absolutely overextended myself after looking at these lines for weeks. My biggest play of the weekend was a 3% on the Seahawks, so it's safe to say I'm questioning everything. Yeah, we all are on that one. Going to push forward and keep tracking my stuff, but it's rough to start negative. I was wondering if you had any advice or direction about the types of plays you make. Like for NFL, I am a huge fantasy player, and I love player props as much, if not more, than sides and totals. Sometimes I feel like they are much more risky with the injury factor. Should I spend time figuring out what types of plays I have good reads on, or should I continue to handicap every game and look for value when it presents itself? Okay, grab a cup of coffee and let's buckle up because we're gonna go over a lot of things. And even if you had a great week one, we're gonna attack this question to where it does affect you. So, all right, we're gonna start from the top here. Andy, I had a pretty rough weekend when it comes to NFL. Usually, what I consider my best sport. I'm gonna stop there. This is not directed at the person that wrote this question. Not at all. I hear this all the time. NFL, my best sport. I need to see this on paper, and I need to see proof that NFL is everyone's best sport. I don't believe it. I just don't. I know one person that succeeds at NFL every single year. I know one person. Out of everybody, I know one. And I think people say it's my best sport. I think what they mean is it's my favorite sport. I think because, there's only 17 weeks plus the regular season, so you have limited amounts of time. This isn't like soccer that goes all year round or, NBA that goes for, 10 months, it feels like. So I would really want a deep dive on tracking plays to determine if NFL truly is the best sport, because sports books will tell you no, it's not. It's not anybody's best sport. Like that, football is too big of a moneymaker. So I would really want to do a deep dive on your bets and what sports you do handicap to determine if NFL is truly the best sport, because I just think it's way too hard with spreads and totals. And maybe you end up like 8-9 units at the end of the year. That's not life changing. That's not, it's great, but it's not making a big difference on the bankroll. So I will start with this. Next, I absolutely overextended myself after looking at these lines. My biggest play was a 3%. That's not overextending yourself. Don't worry about a 3% play. Having 15% on a play, that's overextending yourself. So I have no issues with a 3% play. It depends. I don't know how many other bets that you made, but if a 3% was your biggest play, you're not overextending. That's fine. You're practicing good bankroll management if that's your biggest play. So I have no issue with the 3%. The Seahawks, it's safe to say I'm questioning everything. It's okay to have a bad read in week one. Here's what you want to do in week one. Go over what was your best reads and what was your worst reads, and look at why the reads didn't work. So, full disclosure, we were on the Seahawks. We had them money line in a money line parlay. So we misread the Seahawks. Their offensive line was terrible. Their defense was terrible. So really, what happened was it was just a misread on the offensive line and the defense of Seattle. On the flip side, we read the Colts perfect. That game played out exactly how I thought it was going to. Their secondary was bad. Anthony Richardson was inaccurate at times. He looked good at other times. So when I'm looking at some of the plays that we had this weekend, I'm going to focus on what did we completely misread, why did we misread it, but what did we have right, and how can we build on that? So, Steve, real quick, anything that you thought you misread and something that you thought we read really, really well this weekend?
Well, I mean, like I was gonna start with like yeah, like you had said, don't question yourself too much on that Seattle play because we were on that one as well and we got bid on it too. Looking at things that we played that I thought we had a great read on Eckler going over for his receiving yards. That was a spot that we had circled and looked at for a long time, and then early in the game it didn't look so hot, but he managed to get there pretty easily in the end. That was one that we had a great read on. We had some other reads that weren't so good. Obviously, Seattle was one of them. The maybe in the Patriots Eagles game kind of went a little awry at the beginning. We didn't really necessarily who could have predicted that though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like some of these things in week one, like you can't really predict, and like you said, you just gotta take your lessons from week one and apply them to the rest of the season.
So when we're looking towards week two, you have to look at some teams. You have to determine if a team played really good. Was that an outlier? Or was that is that something that can continue in week two? Because teams are going to make big adjustments. So a team like the 49ers, got to look at. They dominated Pittsburgh. Were we right about San Fran? And is that going to continue? Were we completely wrong about Pittsburgh? Is Pittsburgh really not that good? So take a look at what you thought you had really good reads on, and then try and apply those to week two. Whatever you had bad reads on, stay off of them for week two. Don't get near 'em. Had a bad read on the Seahawks. We're not going to bet on them until we actually get a better read on them. So a lot of times you're going to, at least what we do, we end up betting the same things throughout the year. Like we had 35% plays last year, and we went back and looked at them. A lot of them were on the same people, the same props, and same teams. So you only need a good read on a few teams to make a lot of money throughout the NFL season. So go back and look at your reads. Why did they not work? What worked? And then focus on those moving forward. All right. I was wondering if you had any advice or direction about the types of plays you make. All right. I think you're telling yourself something here in this next sentence. For NFL, I am a huge fantasy player, and I love player props as much, if not more, than sides or totals. You just told me you like player props more than sides or totals, yet you're betting on sides and totals. Why? If you are such a huge fantasy player and you love player props, why not focus on that? That's what me and Steve do. We have never done a side. Like we've never done a total in a game. Why? Because we're passionate about player props, and we find that that's where the value is. That one sentence was my biggest takeaway, where you said you're a huge fantasy player and you love player props as much, if not more. Go to what you're passionate about. You're going to be happier researching those plays. If you love them more than sides and totals, then scrap the sides and totals. So that sentence really, really stuck out to me. Sometimes they just said sometimes I feel like they're much more risky with the injury factor. I get told this all the time about player prop. Well, what if someone gets hurt? Our response, well, you can take unders. We had an under. Our best play on Monday was an under. And the other thing is, injuries happen all the time. It costs teams. It costs you sides. It costs you totals. It costs you player props. Does it suck when you have an over on Aaron Rodgers and he gets hurt? Yeah, but look at how many other players there were to bet on in that game. There was Josh Allen, there was James Cook, there was Stephon Diggs, there was Gabe Davis, there was Garrett Wilson, there was Brees Hall, there was Dalvin Cook. All of those guys played the entire game that we could have bet on. So I think people see one player get hurt and they go, well, player props. And it's like, no, all the other players, made it through the game. People worry about the injuries on player props, and I just don't get it. And if you have an over and your player gets hurt, so what? It's one loss. I mean, seriously, Steve, how often does that happen to us? It's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's rare. When it happens, you remember it, but
Yeah.
it's pretty rare. And like you said, I was gonna mention that as well. You gotta if you feel that way and you're that worried about the injuries, start really looking at the unders. There's a lot of value in unders, and people hate playing them, but there's a ton of value in them. And Andy had mentioned the play we had on Monday night. We took the Gabe Davis receiving total under. We had a lot of great stats behind it and reasons why he was going to go under, and we read it. We had read that one like a book, and if he went down with an injury early in the game, so be it. We would have cashed that ticket because of that. The other thing I just would mention too is he talks about being great with player props and as opposed to sides and totals with those player props. So I would start to focus in on some categories that you're really good with. Like for MLB, everyone does total bases for the hitter props, and we played it for a while, and we started looking at the hits plus runs plus RBIs category, and we had a lot more success with that one. And then we just stuck with it, and we never looked back at total bases. With NFL, it's passing. If we're looking at passing, it's yards, maybe attempts, TDs. Those are the three that we're kind of focusing in on. So there's a lot of, with player props, there's a lot of different stat categories, and it's easy to be overwhelmed looking at all these things. But if you focus in on certain categories, and especially if you start looking at some unders as well, you can really hone it in and be successful with it.
Yeah, Jim Malero, who does all of our MMA shows with me, does the Contender Series and the UFC show. He only does sacks. He only does defensive sack props. He made a choice last year. He's like, I love the sack props. That's all I'm going to do, and he dominated just by only doing sack props. He hit a couple over the weekend that were plus 240. One was plus 300. Sack props. That's all he sticks to, and he does really really well with it because he picked the category and he narrowed it down. The next question: should I spend time figuring out what types of plays I have good reads on? Yeah. So this is part of the Road to Millions thing: is narrowing down your niche as narrow as possible. And even if you think you have it narrowed down, you can narrow it down even more. So we talked about what teams you think you have good reads on, and just focus on them. There's not a lot of teams I'm looking at this weekend for player props. I'm looking at my Colts because I know them really well and I predicted exactly how they were going to play. I also watched that entire game and I think I got a good read on the Jaguars. So I have a couple plays I want to look at on the Jaguars. There's some other teams I'll look at, but most of the teams I'm going to just not even worry about. Like Miami, Corbin has a good read on Miami. He did last year. He does this year. We're absolutely going to be looking at Miami Dolphins props. But there's a lot of teams that I'm not even going to bother looking at because I don't follow them. So if you even want to narrow it down to pick what division you follow the most, like what's your team, what division are they in, just follow that division and then pick a category. It makes life so much easier. I can't imagine trying to break down every single game and trying to figure out the side and the total. That just sounds like a complete nightmare to me. I want to break down a few teams and a few props. And like I said, last year on our 5% plays, which is where we did all of our damage, they revolved around the same teams and the same players. There was just you saw a lot of the same concepts and teams and names popping up. So I would recommend really narrow down your niche and start with what teams did you have great reads on in week one. Just start there. You probably can pick 2 or 3 teams that you had really good reads on there. That's your wheelhouse. Start there. Last sentence of this: should I continue to handicap every game and look for value when it presents itself? Unless you're doing this full time and you're doing it 18 hours a day, I promise you are never going to be able to handicap properly every single NFL game. It's impossible. It's impossible. You're not going to be able to do it, especially if you add college football to it. There's no chance. There's no chance. You're not going to be able to properly research every single game and break it down from a sides and spreads total. You're going to have to abandon a lot of games in the NFL and focus on a few of them in order to find the value. So to sum it up, I think you're doing fine on bankroll management. If your biggest play was 3%, you're fine. I would I would stick with that. We had a 5% play. We're going to have another 5% play this weekend. So I think that's good. If you're passionate about player props and you like them more than the sides and totals, then scrap the sides and totals. Sides and totals is where the books make all of their money. They make a lot of money off that. So if you like the player props, I think you can find value there. And I would just narrow down what teams you had a really good read on in week one, focus on them, and just don't even worry about the other teams. Just get them out of your mental space, do all your research on those few teams, and go from there. So thank you so much for that question. That was really, really good. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And don't worry, it's a long season. If you got off to a rough start in week one, well, you can turn it around really easily. You just need one good week, and you'll be feeling good about yourself. Be back on track. So, great question. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button. Please let us know that you're enjoying the gambling content. Leave us a comment for your Survivor Pool pick, and also let us know what some of your favorite plays are for this weekend coming up. So. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for the Road to Millions. Tomorrow, it is NFL from here and all the way through Sunday. So we'll be NFL heavy Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Good luck on all your plays today. All plays can be found at WagerTalk.com. Don't forget to hit up WagerTalk today at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday for more great gambling content. Good luck on your plays. We'll see everyone tomorrow.
Good luck, guys.